Should public services and utilities be privatized? No, they shouldn't. You've just stated that keeping services privatized will encourage innovation and stimulate competition. Yet, you've contradicted yourself by saying that municipalities will be the ones arranging for healthcare. They're the ones that's going to structure it. If that's the case, then leave it in the public hands. Let them be the ones to decide what's going to happen with their public utility through the government. They pay their taxes for it. They have leaders that they elect into these positions to deal with it. So instead of having the private organization be the one to reap the benefits for it, get the profits for it, but then asking them to legislate it, leave them in full control. Public services should remain in the public hands. There are vital services. We've just touched on the NHS. The NHS is under threat of privatization through the ongoing fragmentation that it constantly goes through. This is our most important public service, as we can see right now in this coronavirus pandemic. Democratic voice. Now, there needs to be some democratic accountability when mentioning these services. If you look at German football, by the way, this is in the private sector. There's the Bundesliga has the 50+1 ownership rule. That leaves the members of the club, the fans, the most important part of the club, in power. They're the ones with the voting rights, which means that anything that happens, anything that's decided, anything that's passed through, they are accountable for it. They decided it, the fans. So if they're the ones deciding it, and this is working in a private industry, why can't this happen with our own services, with our NHS, with our Royal Mail? Royal Mail is no longer it's still a public service, public utility, but it's not under public governance. It's part of the private sector now, since 2013. In fact, when they were first sold off, the shares was at 330 pence. Then all of a sudden, the next day rose by 38%. 6 months later, the market had risen. The market price had risen by 58%. That's not democratic value? That's not the people understanding what's going on and allowing that to happen? That's business. That's the private sector benefiting, and once again making money off of the public, taxpayers. Accountability. We can't hold private companies accountable in the same way that we can do public ones, the people we vote into office. As you mentioned earlier, businesses like Carillion, they declare bankruptcy, they default, they lay off people. Who do you hold responsible? I mean, the organization is gone now. Who's responsible? When companies go bust but they haven't completed government contracts, who's responsible? The company no longer exists. Yet it always seems, if public services should be entrusted to the private sector, why is it that it always seems that the public service, the public, the people, the taxpayers are the ones who end up sorting it out, bailing people out? Virgin Atlantic recently asked the government for 7.5 billion bailout money for the aviation industry. That's to do with the whole coronavirus pandemic that's going on right now. That bailout money is going to come from taxpayers' money to the private industry, where they're not going to see. Not everybody can fly. Not everyone can afford to fly because of the prices that are put up by these large airlines such as Virgin Atlantic, who are privately owned. Now, this will come from taxpayers' money, and the median salary in the last year was 30k. I'll remind you that Richard Branson is worth $3.5 US, $3.5 billion US.